Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Unofficially Opinionated. We are your host. I am Nate. In case you haven't noticed, we're here with Christian and Tim, as
As
usual.
usual.
This is Yes, this is going to be a special. This is a special episode, so it's not the podcast episode. It is a what we are tentatively calling a business corner because all three of us have a interest to some level in business, and we um, would like to discuss it. Like our podcast is a business. Everything that we're endeavoring is a business, and and I thought it would be a good idea to talk about to discuss as we do um, like situations that businesses have to deal with, mostly coming from the employee, maybe not necessarily mostly coming from the employee point of view, but just I would like to consider them as study cases. So we're just going to take a small, like, business situation, and then we're just going to discuss it. Nothing, too heavy, but we're just, well, maybe it might be heavy. We don't know. But so our first
Oh,
topic is our first topic is a situation that happened. I'm going to take the place of the person in the story. So we're going to tell you the story, and also for our listeners, if you have your own opinion, feel free to like write to us, to leave comments and let us know what your take on it is, or how you would handle it, or if you think if you think the the person, well, actually, let me read it and then I'll tell you. So it says, in 2018, I told the director of my employment at the time that I would like to be able to work from home a couple days out of the week. I was informed without even consideration that it was impossible and that this position required me to be in the office. So the facts about this um, situation was that the person, it says, I was a team leader of about 6 people. They did have weekly meetings. They lived about an hour and a half away from work. The job was purely online, so everything that they did was online. Then years later, the pandemic hit, and now suddenly they found a way to make the job work from home. And then the question is, it's a question that is often asked on Reddit. AITA, am I the, you fill in the blanks. I mean, I don't mind cursing, but we also want to let this, be available for people who have maybe sensitive
could be
ears.
AITB. Am I the
AI,
butthole?
the butthole. There
Right.
you go. Yeah. Yes. So, what do you all think? What do you think about that situation? So the person was actually, I can be honest. This is actually me. I'm talking to. This is my situation here. Because I was like, I wanted to be kind of like just um, like anonymous sort of thing, But if you have like more questions, I could definitely answer them for you. So, what do y'all think?
Chris, I think you're on mute.
Chris, I think you're muted.
So, like I was saying before I muted myself, um,
Yes.
yeah. So I think it's a very complicated thing. This work from home piece. I think it's very reliant upon the industry and the job role and the culture, and also how invested company is in supporting work from home.
Wait. Okay. Wait. So we already did a podcast on working from home, actually. And if you haven't heard that, take a listen. It's one of our earlier episodes. So we did talk about this. We're not talking about like whether companies should invest in working from home or not. This situation. So basically, I told them I had analyzed my job position, and I told them I should be able to work from home. And I was like a couple days out of the week. Actually, I was like 2 or 3 days because I was commuting an hour and a half to work uh, every day, an hour and a half there and an hour and a half back. And I was like, actually, I should be able to work from home like 2 days out of the 2 days out of the week. Um, and they said that it was impossible and that my job required me to be in the office, which it didn't. I did have a team, but again, we did have opportunities. We did have like Zoom was functioning, was existing, Skype and stuff like that. So that would have been a possibility. And again, I had only requested
Got
like
it. So
two
you wanted
days out of the
hybrid.
week.
Your team
Um,
was the full team in person?
the full team
Got it.
was
So the
in
team's
person.
in
Yes,
person every
they
day.
were in the team actually were.
So the team was in
Say that
person
again.
every day.
The team was in person every day. Yes.
Got it. So on
And
person
and their
team.
jobs consist of things they could have done online.
Let me think. One. Some of them yes, and some of them no. Some of them they had to be there. They they had yeah they had to be there because if someone came in, someone had to be there to
Right.
to welcome them.
Mm.
So some of them yes, some of them no, but it was alternate. So it wasn't like the same person always had to be the
Oh,
person
okay.
welcoming. You know, so some of the things that they were doing yes, some of the things that they were doing no. And in fact, since I was there and the things that I could have been doing at home, I did, and I mean I accomplished it. I accomplished it, so I could have been doing other things. Since I'm at the job, there's nothing else that I could have been doing, so I took it upon myself to start doing stuff that was not even in my job description, things I shouldn't have been doing at all. But I just took it upon myself because I don't also like just sitting there and be doing nothing,
Got it.
you know. So
So team is on site. You as the team lead can do most of your work not on site. So the question would be
yes,
for me, my first thing I want to look at would be how would it be perceived by your team if they are there all the time and you don't have to be there? Now, for a long time,
that they don't have to be there all the time. Just somebody has to be there for the welcoming, right? So just take for example, like if one, so there was a team, it was a team of six. One person is there, Monday. I was never the person that welcoming, but I could be the person welcoming. Like I could be there if somebody called in sick or something like that.
so
It was absolutely not a
is this
problem.
like a
I'd be there.
retail business? It was a store, right?
No,
It was a
it was a
school.
school. Yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
Hmm.
So there would be people that came in, but my job, what I was specifically doing, didn't require me to be in the office, and so excuse me, to avoid, except for maybe managing my team, but my team didn't need managing, right? They just needed they had their jobs and but they were younger, so they needed a little maybe guidance, right? But if I wasn't there 2 days out of five, they wouldn't have like had an issue with it because they're not there every single day, right? They're not in the office every single day. You understand
Got
what
it.
I'm saying?
Got it.
So what I did was something that they hadn't had before was I set up office. I'm sorry, I set up meetings so that we could all, you know, share what we had been, so we all can come together, you know, recognize who we were, have fun together, talk. We'd have snacks, or we celebrate their birthdays. Um, well, actually, I don't think we celebrated their birthdays because I wasn't there that long. But anyways, so we would get to know each other. We wouldn't forget who we were. Um, so I would obviously still come into work on those days where we did this. Actually, we did celebrate their birthdays. Now that I'm thinking about it, we did. So, anyways, yeah. So, what are y'all thinking?
Right.
See, this is why I wanted it to be anonymous, because then you would. I mean, please
Oh
don't hold
no.
anything
So
back.
my
But
my my main thought is when I look at the work from home thing in this situation, I would want to be sure that it was viewed in a way that was fair. So yes, you're the leader, but does
right,
that automatically mean you don't have to be in the office? Simply because you don't have to be in the office, right?
wait,
So
say that
so
again.
so
Yes, I'm
as
the
the leader,
leader,
do you get
but
the option to be home simply because you're the leader? Because I mean, I assume, as you mentioned, anyone could do any portion of their job. Sounds like they could be from home,
yeah,
but they really worked in the office. Now they weren't in the office every day, but their job was an office job.
no, they could have done their job from home as well, had they.
But
I mean,
the
excuse
practice,
me. The real question about
yeah,
whether
the,
they
the
were,
practice was
mhm,
they worked in the
yeah,
office.
yes, that, well, that's the practice
Right,
for everybody
right.
in the office. Yes. So, for example, if I wanted to fight for them to be able to work from home, I could have done that. Like if I'd have been like, oh, they can do this, but the thing is, the things that they were doing, excuse me. I mean, I could have done that if they were interested in it. They didn't bring it
Got it.
up. There wasn't
Yeah,
something.
that's that's where my mind goes
Yeah.
initially. Would be I would fight for, hey, this department can be hybrid, right? Including them and also me. And here's going to be kind of the schedule. So we have coverage all throughout the week, but the department is now hybrid. And
Hmm.
here's how it's going to work. We have these X days where we have team huddles and we meet. I have one on ones with these people at X, Y, and Z time. Here's how we're going to operate and be productive in a hybrid environment. To me, that might go off better than,
Yeah.
hey, I don't need to be here that often. I can be at home 2 days a week and still do my job. They'll be fine without me, which is maybe true, but probably for me more difficult to justify from a lens of fairness and kind of
Yeah.
culture.
Well, I wasn't the only one. Well, I was asking for my position, but excuse me, there were people working from home, just not
Right.
in my department. Excuse me, and I couldn't speak for my department either. So there were a bunch of other managers doing, you know, so I can't say we should be able to work from home when this other manager actually doesn't want to work from home, you know.
I would just speak for my team.
I don't think that that would be within. Yeah, that's what I would do. I'd speak for my team and be like, listen, but again, when the pandemic hit, these people were still coming into work, but because the law was, you know, if you didn't
Right.
need to come into work, you can't come into work. Um, that position became a work from home position, even though other people
Yeah.
were coming in to
Right.
work.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So that is something that you have to keep in mind. If you, regardless of whether like the entire department could have been working from home, if I told them I don't have to, and this would be, and it wasn't because I was a leader or anything like that. Like I don't think that even crossed my mind. It was, it would it would be more beneficial not only for me but for their company for saving money. Excuse me, to allow me to work from home 2 days out of the week, or even one day, but they weren't listening to anything. So the thing is, the only, I guess the real difference is that the pandemic is what changed, forced them to change their
Yeah,
mind.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? Which I think is weird, because if I'm telling you logically it's a good idea, but then you're telling me no, it's impossible, until the pandemic hits, and then all of a sudden now, oh, it's
Yeah,
possible. I
agreed.
think that
Yeah, for
there's
me, yeah,
a.
impossible is the wrong word to use. Like by policy, that's just not how we operate. We're not going to do that because if you look at even like kids doing school from home, like that's possible,
Mhm,
but it's much worse, right? Like we did it as a society, but it was terrible, right? Like the kids are much better off learning at school. Now, every job is not like that, but I think there are some jobs where unless you really do structure the way you work around working from home, is going to be worse than if you're in
mhm,
the office. Now, it's still maybe good enough to operate and better than nothing, right? And like in that case, in the case of the pandemic, better to have these 10 people work from home than we have to drop those positions and have nobody.
mhm,
So maybe it's not as the way we would like it, but in order to still operate, we're gonna do this thing. Um, because I think one thing that a lot of companies didn't do was really try to shift anything other than just putting people at home. So as far as like the social aspects
what do you
of
mean?
being at a job and working with people, when I was working,
Mhm,
we didn't really have a way to resolve that. So we'd be on Zoom meetings for like meetings, but like there's no way
mhm,
to casually interact or talk to people or kind of socially talk to folks outside of like only working. So I think a lot of the social pieces
mhm,
kind of broke down, and someone new comes in the company, they're not introduced around. Like in an office, you might bring them around, walk them around. Hey, this is so and so. They're new here. Blah 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 blah. Even something like that doesn't happen, but at
right.
least you can do it. Whereas on Zoom or remote, that kind of stuff, I know at least for us, just kind of got dropped. All of a sudden, it's like, who's this person in this meeting? Oh yeah, they started 2 weeks ago. Okay, who are they? What do they
Right.
do? So I guess the point I'm making is yes, a lot of things probably could be done from home that we probably said we can't, but I think a
Mhm,
lot of times it was done in a very inefficient way just to kind of get the job done versus a thoughtful way of ensuring
mhm,
that hey, we're moving it home but it still works. Like in your case, for instance, right? Like you discuss weekly meetings and things to kind of make it work, and maybe it could have worked, but I think in that
mhm,
case, still culturally, given that you were a team leader, I would have responded differently had you said, hey, look, my team and I can operate much better from home. I personally have an hour and a half, whatever commute, but I know so and so, blah, blah, blah. Here's how we're going to work from home as a team. I would respond better to that versus, hey, my team does very well. They don't need me there all the time. So I don't think I need to be here all the time. Why that might be true.
so, but that begs the question, like the. So I do understand the aspect of coming at it from the proper stance, because you're still talking to a human, and the way you talk to a human is going to trigger a certain response in that person. So I understand that, but it also sounds like you're saying I'm telling you of a more efficient way of, you know working, because they had to pay for my transportation, right? So they're paying for my transportation, they're also paying for me being physically at the site. Excuse me. In terms of, well, maybe not necessarily light, because they had to pay for light regardless of who's working there, but they're paying for, um they're paying for the, well, in their situation, they're paying for everything that I had to use while I was there. Like the computer and stuff like that, the repairs that they would have had to, well, the repairs I would still, no, the repairs they would still have had to pay for if I had taken their computer home with me or their laptop home with me, but they would still be paying for that, which may sound minimal, but I don't think it is. When companies like this start looking at budget, you know, so they're still having to pay for these things, and I'm telling them, listen, you could it'd be more beneficial if I'm actually working from home. The problem is they're not looking at it. They're looking at it from their culturally what they did was what you're saying. They're looking at it culturally from what they did. They're unable to step back and look at it from, or they're unwilling maybe to step back and look at it from a perhaps a more
Well,
logical
I
point of
think
view,
both
saying,
both things are important. So company culture is important. Productivity and efficiency cannot be, in my opinion, the only metric, right? So, hey, look, we're able to produce more if I'm at home, but everyone's more miserable or is more disconnected from each other. Like there is a well, yeah, right,
but we
but
don't know that.
yeah, yeah,
That's
I'm saying, but
but that's
like
the
there
problem.
are costs to things that are outside of the strict dollars that you might not notice immediately, right? There are some intangible things about,
That's true.
even though I would prefer mostly to work from home, there is value, I think, in a more hybrid
Hmm.
model where at least we do see each other in person once or twice a week. If we want to build a team, which you had mentioned, right? But I'm just saying, kind of the point around
Right.
in person or not. To me, it can't only be about is it cheaper and can we produce the same amount of stuff? If yes, then do it.
Well, yeah, no, I okay. No, I understand the concept of culture, which exactly is why I said, we did have our meetings. Like I organized our meetings so that we could get together, and it wasn't necessarily just to talk business. It was so that we would be able to, stay in touch with each other and, continue working or whatever. Um, Continue working well, and I actually think that that really helped because I had heard of their work in the past. I guess their whatever, and it wasn't as productive. From what I had heard. I don't know if what the case may be, but I think I do know that a lot of people like me, so they probably just were telling me things that they thought I might want to hear. So but I did hear that it was their production had gone up. Uh, excuse me, since I got there. But excuse me. But yeah, I don't think working there 5 days a week would merit it, because there are people that do like part time and stuff like that. They don't only come into the job, and they also were part time, so they weren't always there, right? So it didn't really either way that you're cutting it. It still didn't really merit me from being in the office 5 days a week when I told them it could be possible for me to come in only 3 days a week and still get this job done and keep my, for example, what you're hinting to, my team's morale or, culture up, you know? Now, if I had to I can completely work from home, which is actually possible as well. I would just shift the team over to somebody else, but that would have to, that it, they would have to want to be that team leader, then I just wouldn't have a team. I'd just be doing my job.
Right.
I could have done that
Yeah, the
as
other thing
well,
that I
but
think trips up
you know,
companies is just like their HR policy. They're slow to change it, and so you know it may just be, hey, look, I agree with you, but we can't just be making random exceptions, even if it's a good idea, because the policy is people work in the office. Now that means maybe we change the policy, but to make an exception,
no,
even
yeah.
even in a case where it makes sense, can sometimes just one just make it more complicated when someone else asks the same thing, or oh well, why can't I do X, Y, and Z thing? Um,
Well, actually, the way that company culture changes is by making generally is by making exceptions or considering exceptions, or whatever. So like I think it's kind of dangerous, just in my opinion. It's kind of dangerous to not consider an exception because you just simply don't want to make that exception. Like and not even just in my case. I've seen um I mean, maybe we'll end up discussing it if we decide we want to continue with this. Like in other company situations, I don't know if you have anything to add, Tim, but like because we're going to end here now. But other companies they don't want to consider um, things because they just don't want to consider it. Like it's just like they'll say, oh, you know, that it'll make a mess, or it'll be just too hard to implement. And I'm actually currently living in one of those situations. It's got I presented the same thing that a previous employee had presented, and they listened to me, but not to him, which is really funny. And I think I know why they listen to me and not to them because I'm only there temporarily and I have the degree
Right.
that I have and he
Credibility.
does
Yeah.
not. So, yeah, so which is weird because he's presenting the exact same thing. He actually wrote something out. I just showed them how it could work and they were like, "Oh yeah, that works." You know? So like I don't know. I mean, I do definitely hear what you're saying. I'm not sure if I agree with the the outcome of that decision, though. Tim, did you have anything to
Um,
add?
as Christian was saying, about company culture and stuff like that. There was some good points. Communication. There's a lot of lack of communication. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm a proponent of working from home, but I do understand that the breakdown of communication changes the culture. It turns everybody into pawns. You know.
Do you think that people communicate
Oh
more
yeah.
at work?
Even like there it's
They
they
talk
talk.
more at work,
Okay.
yes, because
Yeah.
they see each other. But do they communicate more?
Okay. If you're saying that, um, I think it's a mix. There's a lot of social conversations where they're mixing in personal things, business communications about stuff, and sometimes just talking about stuff that's funny. And but those are the things that make your employees either work good together or hate each other. Those conversations that happen in between. Um, the with video calls and stuff like that, that's like a timely thing here and there, and it cuts like half of that out. There's nobody talking about the last um, movie they watched. There's nobody talking about shows. There's no company cohesion, and when it comes to employees and stuff, it's all about we see each other on Thursday. He says his thing, I say my thing, she says her thing, end of meeting, you know, until next Thursday.
Well, okay, so let me stop let me stop you there. Like what you seem to be talking about is like a total absence of presence, right?
Yeah,
So you're saying it would change in the total absence of presence. But so my question then would be is 5 days a week present required in order to obtain this culture that you're
I don't
talking
think so.
about?
no, and no,
I don't think
I
so
don't
either.
think it is, but one thing I sometimes I see or at least I feel like some companies they deal with everything like extremes. Like, well, if I let person A, start working from home, then what about C, B, C, and D, you know, and they just imagine like an empty office, like 4 days out the week with like two people in there.
Which would which would definitely save them money, but I but also I mean I understand that they think in extremes, but the question is should they be thinking in those extremes? You know, like you can't say I've heard people say that all the time. You know, if I let you do it, then everybody else is going to want to do it. No, everyone else is not going to want to do it. history has proven not everybody wants to do that. Like
I
everyone,
agree.
there's this. I was listening to this song. It was like everyone wants to be king. No, everybody does not want to be king. You can't assume that just because you give this opportunity,
Yeah,
everyone's
Right.
going to
I
Yeah.
take
agree.
it.
For me,
And it never,
yeah,
it absolutely
I just always
never
prefer
happens
to
like that.
have a policy or something in place. Just it doesn't leave you open to people misrepresenting your reasoning for making an exception. Oh, we made exception for Nate because Nate's a man, and they told me no because I'm a woman, right? If what?
Well,
But
they're
you
gonna
see what I'm saying?
misrepresent it
Where
anyway,
like,
right?
if you have all these exceptions, then it leaves you open to different people's personal feeling or interpretation, and that to me leaves you open to intentional or unintentional discrimination, or even just the appearance of discrimination. Whereas it, I think companies should be more open to revising policy. That to me, I think that that's a sticking point. Is hey, oh, that the policy that says we can't do that. All right, well, let's
Yeah.
have a meeting and talk with HR, and we can change the
Hmm.
policy. Like policies can be changed. They're not permanent, right?
Hmm.
But we should follow
Right.
them.
I
But
definitely
hey, if
agree
someone
with
brings
that.
up something, hey, you know what? We hadn't thought
Hmm.
about that. If we change the policy in this X way, then now we can allow
Hmm.
this. And when someone else asks, the policy dictates how we handle that. And so it's not
Yeah.
moving by
I totally
exception, but
agree with
we're
that.
actually adjusting our structure to be reactive to the situation. So yeah,
But and that's what I was saying. Like the exception sh- should be able to cause you to think. I mean, like you don't have to accept the exception, but
yeah,
think about it.
absolutely.
Like process it. Oh, so we're out of time. But that was interesting. So tell us if y'all like that. This new segment. We haven't come up with a name yet, like normal. We just like fish around until we find
I
a
think it
good
should be called
name.
unofficial business.
Our
Go and
resident,
vote
he does.
wherever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe we'll
we'll
put
put
a
a poll
poll.
to
A
We'll
poll
put
make.
up a
sounds
Yeah.
poll
good,
and
but
see
that
what y'all
unofficial business
what you
sounds
all
good too.
want.
I like it.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
boy.
anyways, we're gonna put up our we're gonna we're gonna put up our we're gonna put up a poll. Y'all tell us what you think. All right. So thank you for joining us for another episode of unofficially opinionated, whatever this is. Um, Catch us on our social media, YouTube now. Our videos are on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and yeah, Facebook, right? So yep. So we'll talk to y'all
Later.
next time. Ciao.
Peace.
Want to leave it awkwardly for a while? No. I'll
Did
stop
you
it.
stop? Did you? No, because I.